Dedicated women's league to fill the gap between college and professional soccer. A league that's committed to advancing women's soccer, focusing on the development of the female soccer player during the summer months, elevating the competition to help each player reach that next level, providing high-level soccer for collegiate players, aspiring and former professionals, and international stars. Operating with professional standards because players and fans deserve an exceptional experience. Uniting players that inspire and are inspired. We are passionately growing the women's game. The future is bright for United Women's Soccer. It's time. Be part of the movement.
Good morning, soccer fans. It is bright and early here on the West Coast, and it is still dark. But hey, my name is Jonathan Ward. I am the Director of Community Engagement and Relations for the UWS, and I'm excited to be a part of this now for the last 3 years as we kind of started to build a little bit more and more every single year. And today is no different. I'm going to be joined by Katie Goodman. Katie's going to join me on the show this morning when she gets going. And also, we'll have Grace Storty and Sarah Dilling from Calgary Foothills Women's Soccer joining us later this afternoon, the runner-up for the 2022 National Championship. But let's get back and talk about where we are now as a league. This past year in 2022, we saw a great season that ended in Ludlow, Massachusetts, with the Chicago Mustangs defeating the Calgary Foothill team. Very strong, very great matchup in the national championship. And last year was a good year for us. There was 4.16 goals per match, which turns out to be 924 goals throughout the season. Think about that when you have close to 150 games, I think we had last year. To see that many goals is amazing. And this year promises to be just as good, if not better. We'll have over 130 matches brought to you every single weekend in the 2023 Summer of Soccer, and we're really excited to bring that to you. The season starts off this weekend, and it starts off today with the New England Mutiny taking on Worcester Fuels. Worcester used to be Smiles FC, but has since changed their name to Fuel FC. They'll be displaying their new logo today. We'll talk a little bit about that as we get further in the show. But the idea is over the next couple of months in 4 different divisions at this time, we'll be moving to a national championship with the location to be determined here soon, with Megan Warner bringing that information to us either via article or a live show on the weekly or even on our Cup of Tea. So stay tuned for that. But 300 days, close to 300 days since we last saw soccer in the UWS. And let's talk a little bit about last year and what that means, what that meant to the league. First off, the league has been around since 2016. Back in 2016, Santa Clarita Blue Heat won the national championship. And every year since, there has been a national champion representative from the West, with the exception of 2018, when a team that was in the West moved to what was at the time the Southeast Conference. But Calgary, Santa Clarita Blue Heat have always been in one of the finals, with the exception of 2018, which had Lancaster Inferno. But the big thing is going to be who represents this year. What team is able to step up? We have a lot of new faces, familiar faces, and some teams that are trying to represent and show more of what they're capable of. And I'm excited to bring this to you guys this year, and it's going to be really fun. But let's look at last year. We had a couple conferences. The first conference that I want to bring to light is the Central Conference. There was 3 divisions in that conference. The Heartland Division, the Midwest, and the Great Lakes. And this year is going to be no different, with the exception of the Great Lakes having some teams that are really, really strong. Last year, the teams of the Hawks, the Nationals, were really, really strong teams. both having a high goal for and low goal against average. So I keep looking over here because I have the old firm on, and it's kind of intense. It's a good game. So Rangers, Celtic, if you got CBS, it's another opportunity right there. But they had a playoff for that. So the Nationals FC and Corktown AFC ended up playing and having that tournament. They were really, really strong clubs of the year. In the Midwest Division, we had St. Louis Scott Gallagher and Chicago Mustangs. And then in the Heartland Division, there was a Central Conference winner that went on to the playoffs to play the Mustangs eventual there. The big question is going to be the East. The East is the biggest of all of our conferences. The best teams seem to come out of there at times. Last year was no different. New England Mutiny, Connecticut Fusion, who had a great year, FC Buffalo, Coppermine United, and Lancaster Inferno, all really, really strong teams that pushed the envelopes. We were lucky enough to see FC Buffalo in the national championship along with the Mustangs up to this point, and it was a great showing altogether. My lights went out. What in the world? It's like everything forgot how to work. In the Southwest Division, which saw the Athenians for the second year in a row make it to the national championship. Prior, they had made it to Austin to represent, and this year we're not quite sure what's happening with those divisions, but we'll keep you guys posted as we find out more and more with those conferences as the Southwest is still being developed and getting their schedule together. Out West, obviously out West is going to be where the strength seems to be. It's where it has been over the last few years. Again, every year national championship match has featured a team out of the West, and this year is no different. I think we're going to see one of three teams, maybe four, come in there. So last year we had Calgary Foothills, Santa Clarita Blue Heat, FC Arizona, and LASC, all representing teams in those conferences, in that conference, with Calgary actually coming out as undefeated against the rest of the pack and representing the West. They've reloaded, and so has Santa Clarita Blue Heat. This year, there's a new team that's going to be added to the mix out here west, and that's the Reno Vikings. Good, solid team, has some history down south, so they have moved to Reno. So it'll be nice and interesting to see what happens with that. But this year, we're excited because I think we have a lot of strong teams. I think we're going to see a lot more opportunities. And the summer of soccer is supposed to be that. It's supposed to be providing opportunities for young women or even women who are still trying to keep going and play at the higher level or get to Europe or get to an NWSL team. This past season allowed us to have the opportunity to see 6 athletes that had previously played in the UWS be drafted in the first 10 picks of the first round of the NWSL draft, and is no different this coming year. But I'm excited. I think we have a good year ahead of us and a lot more to show as a league. But today we have a matchup, and the matchup is Worcester Fuel FC is actually going to be visiting the New England Mutiny. The New England Mutiny last year was a very, very strong team, actually one of the strongest, if not the strongest, out east, with a record of 9 wins, 1 loss, 27 goals for, and 8 against. Very strong, 27 points total, and really was able to move the ball and do things that separated them in what was the New England division. Their opponent in the New England division was the Worcester Smiles. And Worcester Smiles, again, has since changed their name to Fuel FC, Worcester Fuel FC. And they were trying to find their footing last year. They had a lot of players who had not experienced UWS soccer and were really focusing on developing and getting better. And over the course of the season, you can see the improvement happening. They didn't have any wins, but they were a team that was improving as their style of play came together. New head coach last year, knew everything, it seemed like. So this year with a new logo, hopefully they're able to change their fortunes and make something happen here in the UWS Summer of Soccer 2023. Again, thank you for tuning in. We're excited to have this morning with you guys. Katie Goodman will be joining us here shortly, as well as Grace Storty and Sarah Dilling from Calgary Foothills Women's Soccer. They'll be joining us later this morning as we get ready for the summer of soccer in 2023. Again, there's also other soccer matches going on. Celtic down 2-0 to Rangers. If you can't tell, I'm not happy about that, but being a Celtic supporter, it's a hard morning. All right, let's do this. We will come back shortly. I wasn't come back shortly, but we'll stay on. So with the 2023 season beginning, all eyes lead to the national championship. And at any point when you have these opportunities, it's big to think about. We've put out the schedule. I think some of the matches that come to mind, we'll be bringing matches to you every weekend. We'll be doing these on 11. So join us on 11 for all UWS matches that we're able to get streamed. You can follow all of the stuff for UWS and the UWS Weekly on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. But the hype train is real. Everything is going. Again, it's been 300 days since our last match, close to 300. It's like 290. We were in Ludlow, Massachusetts for the national championship. National championship weekend was a solid weekend. We saw FC Buffalo. We had the Athenians from San Antonio. We had Calgary Foothills and Chicago Mustangs. This year's a little different, obviously, with some teams not returning, but also some new teams. Excuse me, I cough. Some new teams that have joined the mix. Those new teams will have been brought up. Cincinnati Sirens is one of the teams that has my eye. Cincinnati Sirens coming in. Excuse me, I got sneezing again. Coming in, they're a new team that has a lot of potential. It's exciting to see new teams come in, but they'll be competing in the league. They have also an academy program. They have a U13 through U18, and they've been PASL national champions in 2019, 2020, 2022, and 2023. This team has a good record and a great opportunity to build. They've got some players coming from Europe to play, Greece and Israel. So it will be interesting to see how they are able to adapt, because we've seen in the past teams that come in to the UWS aren't really sure. They don't get the first years always seems to be rough, with the exception of a few, right? Copper Mine United, who last year came into the league and really just took it by storm. They're a UWS League 2 team that came in and really just stole the show for the Eastern Conference last year with a record of 8-1-1, 18 goals for, 8 against. Really solid group. Ran out of steam towards the end of the year, but they were fought tooth and nail by Lancaster Inferno, who returns a lot of players, and we'll talk more about those players who are returning later in later shows. But the big thing is going to be building off of what they had from the previous years. But today's featured matchup is New England Mutiny, and it will be nice to see what New England has. Last year, they were everybody's pick. Towards the end of the year, they were playing really great soccer, staying on that front foot, moving forward, and they were almost as though they just ran out of steam at the end. Now, what was the case? Don't know, but we do know that they will be back this year stronger than ever in the summer of soccer with an eye on the national championship opportunity to represent the Eastern Conference. The Eastern Conference is stacked. If you were able to look at any of the information, or if you saw tweets that I'd put out, the Eastern Conference has a lot of clubs. It's got 19 teams that are representing it. 17, and it's going to be a big opportunity. So we have Albany Rush, we've got BC United, Connecticut Rush, Coppermine, Erie Commodores, FC Berlin, FC Buffalo, Flower City Union, who might have the best logo in the league, Keystone FC, Lancaster Inferno, new club Maine Footy, who we featured on the show back in February. It's been that long since we had a show. My goodness, Megan, we got to get back on it. New England Mutiny, New Jersey Copa, Scorpion Soccer, Sporting Connecticut, Steel City FC, and then Smiles FC. We're still waiting to see more if those conferences get put into alignment. Oh, we'll see. Midwest Division has Chicago Rush, Edgewater Castle, the before-mentioned Cincinnati Sirens FC, Indiana Union, and the RBFC Elite. So this will be a good breakdown of a division. Out west, we've got Foothills. We've got FC Arizona, who's a strong side this year, looking to become stronger with some of the announcements they've made and players that they brought aboard. Los Angeles Soccer Club, Reno Vikings, who are new to UWS, but not to UWS as they played in UWS League 2 last year. And then Santa Clarita Blue Heat. And then in the Great Lakes Division, we have the Michigan Futsal Factory, Livonia City FC, Michigan Burn, the Michigan Hawks, who were Corktown, and then last year Corktown Hawks, Jaguars FC Pro, Michigan Legends, Michigan Stars semi-professional, and then Nationals Soccer Club. Nationals last year was a really good team, and they put up a good fight. It was surprising because the year before, again, those new teams that come into UWS aren't always going to – it's going to take some time. They need to adapt. They need to get their feet wet to get into the league and go from there. Again, we're excited this morning. We'll have Grace Storty and Sarah Dilling joining us from Calgary Foothills, as well as Katie Goodman joining us back on the Kickoff show. She's going to be joining us here shortly, and we'll have some conversation about the summer of soccer 2023 in UWS and recap some of the 2022. As Katie helped with the San Antonio Athenians, she's been doing a lot of work in San Antonio and with Houston. This year, she'll be doing play-by-play with UWI down in Texas, the University of Immaculate Women. She'll be down there, she'll be down there this year doing that stuff. We'll talk more about what she's got going on and get some information as to her thoughts on the Summer of Soccer 2023 in UWS. Still can't. I got to turn this off. Got to turn the match off. But today, Worcester Fuel FC, you might be familiar with them as the Smiles. If you look on to Twitter, it's a Smile logo. And this year, they're changing their name to the Fuel, which will be they'll be a strong side, hopefully. And we'll see some great things coming out of Worcester, Massachusetts, as it relates to them this year. So last year with the playoff structure, we started off with the division championship, and the first matchup of that was the Chicago Mustangs and St. Louis Scott Gallagher in the first matchup. The second matchup was Corktown Hawks and Nationals FC. In those matchups, the Chicago Mustangs won 3-1 over St. Louis Scott Gallagher, throwing them onto the conference semifinal. And then Corktown Hawks beat the Nationals FC which sent them to the conference semifinals. The conference semifinals also started on the East as well. And so with that matchup, we had FC Buffalo and Copper Mine United taking place against Connecticut Fusion. So Buffalo and Copper Mine advanced, but hey, let's bring Katie on. She's probably got things to do. She's going big time on us. Katie, how are you this morning?
Good. I barely made it up because it's
Oh.
7 a.m. my time, so I'm pretty much living on Celsius and NERS rope over here. I'm like on a sugar caffeine drip, but
you gotta have it. You gotta have it.
Yeah, no, it's all great. I'm actually in Houston, so this background is my sister's craft room. So y'all get what you get today. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, is that cricket work over there on over the shoulder there? What do we got? Cricket stuff?
Where, here?
No, the other side. There's like, she's organized. I look at our pantry of stuff, and I don't even think I'm half as organized as that.
Yeah, no, I tell her that all the time. Every time I come over here, I'm like, can you just come to my house and help me with my closet? Or, like even her cookbooks are organized. She has a binder. They're like in laminated sheets, and I'm like, my recipes, they're in like multiple journals. They're all over. They're like,
written on the hand and the fingers. I'm just get this one tattooed right here.
Yeah, right. Or I'm like, it's somewhere on my laptop. Like, yeah, no, but he is the most organized person I know, hands down, like to a T, everything. So, yeah, if only I did like 20% of that.
Hey, you know what though? You got time.
Yeah. There's still a chance.
You've been busy.
Oh yes, yeah. I've been going, and I'm grateful for it. I'm so happy. A lot of the things that have been tossed my way, and like I wish I could be like, oh, it's because I'm just doing so well, but really it's all a lot of my support system just saying, hey, why don't you give Katie a shot, or hey, why don't you let her try this, and so I think it that's the thing is surrounding yourself with people who believe in you, and you're one of those people, John. You gave me a chance here right at the get-go, and this really was a launch pad for me. So,
well, former player in the UWS and now kind of doing things, but tell us a little bit about the playing and how the playing got you passionate to be here. I think that's the big story, right? Because there's a lot of players who, once there's an end game, it's like, I don't know what to do. Right. So tell us a little bit about your story and your background, and kind of give everybody an idea of what you've got going on now.
Right. So I played my whole life pretty much up until I went and played at Mississippi State, and I actually had to take a medical release there my last half of my junior and senior year. So for me at that point, I thought soccer was out of the picture. I didn't think it was possible for me to come back, and I definitely mourned during that time. It was definitely a grieving period, even though I didn't know what grieving was at the time. And they say every athlete dies twice. And then, I don't know, COVID hit, and I was in between jobs. I had started to just purely freelance. So I was working as an intern on this travel show, which I now luckily host. So I was working as an intern there. I was partially at a PR company. I had just left a production company, and I was, again, just all freelance. And so I had a little bit more downtime than usual. And then I saw my friend actually texted me this ad for the Athenians that they were having tryouts. And I was like, hey, you want to give it a good old college try and see if we still got it? And I went out there, and somehow my touch still existed. And I had been doing a lot of workouts and yoga, so my body wasn't, a terribly rusty machine. I just hadn't really had touches, and so I went out there and became the grandma of the San Antonio Athenians. And it was a great experience. I had made travel team, and honestly, for me, I think, people talk about being a student of the game, and I was probably like 50% a student of the game at Mississippi State. When I got to the Athenians, I had no choice but to be a student of the game, because I didn't have the speed or the agility. Even the touch was a little off at times. So I became about 85% student of the game. And then when I retired again for the second time, I feel like I'm just a total nerd of the game now. Like, I mean, I deep dive into stats, and I'm like, I know too much about people, and it feels weird sometimes. So, yeah, but I wouldn't want it any other way. What's really cool is I just called the Houston Dash game. And I was on the call, and then my former teammate from Mississippi State was on the field coaching. And so it was just this really cool full circle moment to see what you can do as an athlete after. There's so many avenues, and for me,
Absolutely.
this one just feels really good. Yeah.
Well, talking about kind of that full circle, you've gotten a lot of publicity for. You've done some San Antonio Spurs things. You were part of the first all women's coverage for the Spurs. Was that a year ago already?
Yeah, it was about a year ago.
My goodness.
Yeah, it was
Where does the time
the
go?
Spurs game. I know, it's so weird. And you know what's funny is I would consider that probably my break, because after that, a lot of opportunities came and things have just kind of slowly progressed since. And looking at that, I'm like, how do I top that? Like, how do you top being the first ever female broadcast on an NBA team? So I'm like, I don't even think I want to chase that high. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. And either way, like, you know, opportunities come through, and they're unique and they're different. And a lot of times they're not anything you could have planned or even dreamt up. And that's what I'm always shocked about. I'm like, 3 years ago, this was never even in the plan. It wasn't in the books. Soccer off the radar, and then, or maybe 3-4 years ago. But once I started playing with the Athenians, and then I was on here, this was really what ignited the fire. Was being around the game, smelling grass and sweating and having scabs and having back pain and all of that. It just brings it all right back.
It just adds up though over time, right?
Yes, which is why I retired a second time. I was like, I'm so proud of myself for just hanging in there for a season. And at my age, I think I was like 29, 30 at the time. So I had no business whatsoever being out there, but I would never take it back for the world. It was honestly the best experience. I made some lifelong friends as well. And again, it was just, it set me on track. And I think sometimes that's the blessing, right? Is you don't know, and you need the setbacks, and you need the weird space to kind of think and dream about what are you going to do with this time on earth. And right. I think I just got really lucky.
Well, I'm still, I think I'm going to retire a third time. I'm trying to make a comeback at 40. I'm trying to make a comeback at 40. It's hard. It's hard though. It catches up with you quick.
Well, I'm not anyone to tell you not to, so.
That's true. So, hey, let's talk a little bit about the Summer of Soccer in 2023. The big thing, as I led off with the show, goals are big, right? You want to see goals. I think a lot of the flack that soccer gets from non-soccer fans is it's too slow, and what I sit and I watch 90 minutes for a 0-0 draw because they don't have an understanding of the game. Yeah. But last year in the UWS, there was an average of 4.16 goals per game, which equates to 924 total goals. Do you think we actually could hit that number again this year with a few less games?
I feel like we could get close to it. I think a lot of it just depends on who's up top, who's in midfield and up top of all these teams. And do we still have some of the same players coming back? And but I think totally. And that's what I love about United Women's Soccer is I've seen some really good stuff, like really good stuff. I don't think I've watched a game yet that I was just like, meh, that was whatever. Like there's always something, like even if it's like a turnover or a missed touch or something, it leads into something really exciting a lot of times. But honestly, the quality, I mean, it's the best college players in the nation playing in our league. So like you're going to see good stuff, and all these college players, they go on to NWSL or, US Women's National Team, as in Alyssa Thompson. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm hoping we see that many goals. I think that would definitely help the cause of bringing more people to soccer.
So being a female athlete, how important is it? How important is it for female athletes to have this summer program? We've seen a lot of controversy lately about the number of games that females have been playing, and leading to issues as it relates to an ACL or an Achilles, or even other knee issues, MCL, PCL. Is there a threshold of too much soccer, or is having summer soccer really important to keep you sharp, keep you in shape, so that way you don't get injured going into college seasons?
Right. I think you could look at it a couple of different ways, right? I do think that you don't want to just stop no matter what. Even if you're not playing soccer over the summer, you need to be doing stuff and lifting and keeping your core strong, whatever. But you're way less likely to do that on your own versus with a team. And with the team, it's different. You're getting touches. And now that's the thing, is there's always a chance for injury. And it would suck to do that over the summer and then go back to your college program and be like, by the way, this happened. But, I haven't seen much of that, honestly, at least from our team. And I think, too, it depends on the way you're taking care of yourself during that time, during the summer. Like, does your team have a PT, or are you going to get your own PT help, or are you doing proper, stretches and exercises prior to and after practice? It's huge. And if you're really serious about playing, you have to check all the boxes. You don't just show up to practice. You have got to do the proper warm-ups and cool downs, because that's everything. And I think a lot of it comes down to resources, the resource that the athlete has to take care of themselves. I think that's huge. And I think maybe that might be part of what you see at the higher levels, because that's just a different ball game. Yeah, we're demanding a lot in the UWS. It's a competitive league, but I think at maybe, NWSL level, you're competing with the best of the best. People are out for blood to get a starting position, and it's just, I don't know. But I do think resources is a big part of it. And then just keeping that machine well maintained and oiled throughout the summer is important too.
I think for soccer related based, I think Leland Hammonds, who was the former tech director at Athenians, I think he was onto something, because he was always trying to implement physios and after practice care, before practice care. His daughter was even playing in the Athenians at 15, 16 years old. She's actually playing really well. Get a lot of updates on her status and what she's doing in the soccer world. But I think in the end, how important is it to have a good structure, a good foundation within the building, whether it's nutrition or if it's a physio or if it's just myofascial release or somebody who can come in and work on you periodically? It doesn't have to be every day,
right?
But how important as a player is that to keep you focused, keep you sharp? Because look, it's a grind of a season. It's 4 months plus you're coming off of your spring season for college, and you're about to go back for summer and all the extra work you have to do. But how important, what is crucial in the development as it relates to those side opportunities to get work on?
Well, it's extremely important. And I think when you're really young, you feel invincible. You feel like your body is doing what you need it to do. Why? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But honestly, even at a young age, you can have a lot of imbalances and inconsistencies in the body. I'm a yoga instructor, so I'm always thinking about imbalance and stuff. And I'm always doing a certain set of exercises, and I try to share as much as I can with my people in the soccer world about some things they can do if they're hurting or whatever. But I think when you're young, you think, oh, it's not a big deal. And when you have the structure of a team and you have someone within the organization who kind of mandates it, it not only trains them from an early age to just be aware and cognizant of it, but it trains them to actually do it. And I think, when I look at some of these athletes, Christine Sinclair was out on the pitch last night. She is a legend. You think she doesn't take proper care before a game and after? Do you think she doesn't eat the utmost perfection of nutrition? I'm sure she has her moments, right? We all got to get a burger every now and then. But that she is really taking care of herself. And that's the thing, is the best athletes are the ones that can just simply not get injured like half the time. It's if you can just sidestep like major injuries and you can create some longevity in your career, that's that much more time that you can build and grow as a player. But so many players' careers are cut short, like mine, for example, I had to get back surgery early on. And I think what I wish I'd had, and I had a PT, I had a neurologist, I had all the doctors, all the staff. But what I should have had was before that. I should have had somebody to look at the imbalances, the body mechanics, the way I was running, the weaknesses in my core, the tightness in my, hip flexors or my hamstrings. Like, those are the kind of things that you have to catch early to prevent the big injury to begin with. Because once you go there, especially with me with the back injury, bulging discs, it's almost impossible to come back from, I think, as an athlete. And so there's some people, they make it through their ACL tears and MCLs and whatnot. But yeah, I think if there's anything I can preach to these younger ladies, and I'm sure to them it's like a broken record at this point from me, but no, I think if you're really serious about your career, you have to be serious about everything as it pertains to your body health, mental health, physical health.
I think one of the best things I ever heard was from our friend. His name's Kelly Starrett here out of the Bay Area, and he said it's never the primary issue that's the problem. It's the secondary. You think it might be your ACL, but the ACL was because of a hamstring, or it was because your quad wasn't firing, or you had glute amnesia. Yes, glute amnesia is a thing, Katie.
I probably have glute amnesia right now for sure. Yeah, they're non-existent anymore.
Essentially, when the glute's not turning on when you're trying to squat, or there's an imbalance and you're leaning one side or another, and so it's interesting to hear those things and teach that and preach it, but at the end of the time, everybody thinks that, oh, no, it was this. Well, no, there was other misfiring mechanics in the body. But, hey, we're not here to talk about physio and bio. But, listen, Summer of Soccer 2023, what are some of your thoughts as it relates to what should we expect? We've got Worcester Fuels FC, former Smiles, playing the New England Mutiny today. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
Oh, man, I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, I'm a little tapped out at the moment. I haven't had a chance to really do my deep dive. Also, shout out to your bulldog in the background, who's the cutest ever, sweet puppy.
He is not a puppy. He chases animals. We have rattlesnakes right now. It's rattlesnake season here in California, believe it or not, and so he's got to stay inside because it's still dark, and I'm older. I can't see very well.
Uh-oh, you're getting there. Are you going down the hill?
It's a thing. It's a thing.
No.
Got the glasses. Wife's been giving me a bad time.
Oh, man. Well, yeah, no, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think I feel like it's always been a good matchup in the past, and I think it's also early on in the season. So, and that's the thing about the UWS is the squads change pretty drastically at times. It's a lot of younger players who are moving through their college programs and only a few veterans here and there. So I even know the Athenians are going to be changing up quite a bit. So versus what we've seen in at least last season and previous seasons. So I don't know. What do you think?
So to be honest and fair, they always tell you it's better to look good than to play good. But when you look good, you play good. So I'm curious to see how Worcester reacts to the name change with the new logo. They've not had the greatest success rate as it goes in the UWS. Last year, they didn't have any matches that went in their favor. They were 0-9-1, 3 goals for. So my hope is that this year, having a new crest, having a new outlook, we'll call this year 2 because the coach for last year, this is her second year. So whenever you have those moments, right, it's always a rebuild. We look at clubs that come in year 1 and, they everything looks great on paper. They've got the roster, they've got the players, and it doesn't translate. So my hope is that this year we start to see more of that translate. Last year we had Copper Mine United, who came from UWS League 2, was the first promoted club in UWS history to go in and they sat on top of the table. Them and Lancaster Inferno out east going back and forth. It's going to be an interesting opportunity. I think the thing we forget about is most teams that come in, year 1 is a struggle. And so what do you do after year 1? You improve, or you find out what it takes to play at that level. So who knows?
Yeah, I think spot on there with the coach. Just the coach coming back in general is huge because that first season is so impeccable for just learning, like you're saying, the pace of the game, who's in your conference and what you're up against, and how to work against, teams and other coaches and their structure and styles of play. And I feel like even with the Athenians, we've had a lot of coaching changes over the past couple of years, and I think that has hurt the Athenians a little bit, not too much, but I would like to see them find a really solid coach and just kind of keep them around for a little bit to see what they can build on in the coming years. And so good on them for, good on the coach for coming back and giving it another go.
So you're working with the Dash a little bit. You've been doing some Dash games. Let's talk about the talent. This past season, we saw 6 of the first 10 picks were former UWS alum. What does that mean as it relates to the scene, right? You see all these players who have played summer soccer with UWS being drafted in the first round, not just the first round, but the first 10 picks. How important is that as it relates to kind of the scope or the vision or how people look at UWS and summer soccer?
Yeah, it is huge. And I just got to say, I'm so proud of these ladies. Like, I can't help but gush, knowing that they did the work and the due diligence and just not only do their college program, but to come over the summer and really try to compete at a different level and to, vie for their place on a national stage, because that's what the UWS is about. Like, you can come here and say, hey, I went to, national finals or whatever, or I was on the national team for the UWS. And it's an opportunity for players who maybe aren't getting the exposure they want in their college program to get the exposure that they want in another level and in another way. It builds the reel for you a little bit more, a little bit differently. And so I think, for the girls who are really serious about playing after college, you pretty much have to do something like this over the summer because the connections you make are insane. Like, it's almost kind of crazy not to. I know if I were a young college athlete back in the day, I would make damn sure I was playing on a good team in the UWS, even if I had to move somewhere to be on the best team. And that's the difference maker right there, is making sure you're on the right team in the right place with the right connections. And you have to think like that, unfortunately, because you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not on the right team with the right people, no one's going to be able to see it. And getting the right exposure is everything, especially when it's so competitive. So it's no different than networking anywhere else in your life. And so what that says for the league, the fact that we can, take these players that already were really talented and help to refine them a bit over the summer, give them a different experience, and then that kind of exposure that leads to being a top draft pick for the, I'm just like I said, it's crazy not to take advantage of that.
How important, so going back, looking at some of the things that you can do, college players now have an NIL opportunity, name, image, and likeness. Could you imagine what life would have been like for other athletes if, pre-NIL? What does that do for an athlete as it relates to exposure? Is it more important now to be more involved in your sport to see if you can get more offers as it relates to the summer of soccer? So, for instance, the Thompson sisters had signed that big Nike deal for the NIL. And Giselle still has that NIL deal. Yeah. What does that mean? Like, it's insane to think about, but how important is it to have something like that in place for the NCAA that players can say, oh, I need to jump on this, but they also can use it during the summer to give them more exposure?
Exactly. I mean, it's huge because the sky is the limit. And even if you're not getting a big old Nike deal, right? I think so this is something I think that is going to be hard for a lot of student athletes, especially those who are the type A, perfectionistic, hardcore. If they don't get the big deal or if they don't have the followers or the exposure, now you're adding a little bit of another level of pressure. But if you can get that on any level, even if you can start building slowly towards something, just, doing collaborations even, and then eventually getting a deal, slowly building into that, it's going to be really important because you want as much leverage as possible, right? I think what the NIL does for athletes is, don't get me wrong, these athletes are already great. They already have an epic brand, and that's why these big businesses are so drawn to them. But I think if you're someone who, it's just another uh, tool in the toolbox, so to speak, whenever you're presenting yourself to a potential team to say, hey, I've got all this stuff. And maybe I'm on a level playing field with this player, but guess what? I have all this exposure too, which is going to really help the people that come and sit in the seats in your stadium or whatever. Or it's going to help because people are going to, they interact with my personality, and they're going to interact with your brand as a result of that, with your team. And so it is super important, I think. But I think even more so than anything is to not get too hung up on it either. If maybe you're a player who doesn't have all of that just yet, because at the end of the day, it's going to be about what you do on the pitch, whether you make it on a team or not. But if you're level playing field with someone and you've got a lot of other stuff going for you, they're probably going to pick the person that has a giant following. But between that and the transfer portal, the entire college athletic landscape is completely different than when I was there. I wish I could have had NIL deals because I'm a hustler. I
Yeah,
was
you
like
are.
kind of marketing. I was getting a marketing degree at the time. So I'm like, that would have been a great, project to just see if how that panned out. But the transfer portal too, I think about that a lot because there were girls on my team who, transferred in from LSU, and they had to sit for a whole year. They missed a whole year of school, and they were just practicing, or not a whole year of school, a whole year of games, and were
Right.
just practicing with us and came in the next year, And so on one hand, it's kind of like not having a transfer portal allows for a little bit more stability within the program. It allows you to kind of push through. I mean, I think about if I had options to do that, I don't know that I would have pushed through to the extent that I did at Mississippi State. It was really character building. But at the same time, there's a lot of players that they're just in the wrong program and they made the wrong move, and you're 18. How do you know what to do or where to go? So I think all in all things considered, I think that the transfer portal is still a very good thing for athletes.
Even for athletes who, I think I saw it last year in the national championship, there was players who there was movement. There was conversation and movement. There was coaches from other clubs and other schools that were there to look at this potential movement. The big thing, you can make a rash judgment, but you also have to do what's best for you in your future. Are you getting more playing time? Do you need less playing time? Do you need more exposure to a national team coach because you don't represent the United States, you represent somebody else? Does that coach have impact or the ability to pull it? So all of those things come into play, and I think it only makes it larger for the club, or not the club, but for the college, but also it's a good opportunity for coaches at the UWS level to see that as an opportunity to help build a player and the teams to build a platform. If you look on social media, there's a lot of teams who are not as, what's the word? Not as profound, not as up front with their social media. Now, social media plays a big role. That's a lot of why we're here, is to help build those programs, build those opportunities. What do you think the role of social media plays in these players getting an opportunity to go further?
Huge. I mean, I think about the San Antonio Athenians, and we have players from Canada on our team. And I think a big part of that is because of the way that we promoted ourselves, the way the branding, just the overall image we were able to create there at the Athenians. And it's not like you have to have the most perfect amount of posts with all the hashtags. I mean, just literally throwing anything up there as long as it's in line with your brand, and within the scope of what you're doing, right? That's really all you need, is just giving people information, like especially people who are looking at your athletes to maybe take them to the next level or anything. Like, it's so important for their exposure to just share pictures of them, to share highlights of what they did during the game. You're doing so much more than building your brand. You're helping pave the way for the lives of these young players. But I think more than anything, and even if you want to be a little more selfish about it as a brand and an organization, it's only going to help you to attract more players, because players are going to want to go places that look legit and that are winning games. There's it all it all is really important.
So the summer of soccer, 130 games, Katie, between now and we'll call it July 15th, with a national championship the weekend of July 22nd, I think is what it will be this year. What are some of your thoughts as it relates to the amount of soccer? Do you have a team that you're keeping an eye on this year besides San Antonio, whose schedule we haven't even got yet? So what are your thoughts as it relates to the summer of soccer here in 2023?
Well, I always have my eye on SC Blue Heat because, they're almost guaranteed to make it into the final rounds.
Just
and
reloading.
Right. Literally. I mean, they have an endless supply of quality talent is what I feel like over there in Cali. And not only that, just great, solid connections through coaching staff. And it's always putting out a really quality product, solid players and people. So I know they're somebody I'm always having my eye on. The Chicago team,
the Mustangs are not back this year.
They're not.
They're not back this year. So this year we're actually looking at, I know, it's one of those things. It happens, right? But if you were to look at a team out in that area, Edgewater Castle is the team to look at. They have a very strong men's side. So I think they can take the reins of that conference in the Great Lakes.
Well, dang. That's too bad. I really like the stuff they were putting out. They had some really solid players. And so they're always like right there.
A lot of addition, yet some subtraction this year. We're gonna see you're not gonna see some of the usual names on the team sheet that you did the last 2-3 years of the league. But Edgewater Castle will jump into that Midwest division and play well. And I think they'll have a lot of strength in that side, but we shall see. It's early. But Santa Clarita Blue Heat, I think the one thing that they do is they do post, and they try to post as regularly as possible. And I think that's good. Not just good for them, but for the league. The other club that does a lot, and they have a professional club that's going to take place in Canada here very soon, and that's Foothills out of Calgary. So, Katie, the league's been around since 2016. And so since 2016, with the exception of 1 year, which was the Houston Aces team that was part of the West, and they joined in on the Southwest Conference, they were the last team that wasn't a Western Conference team to play in the national championship. That was the only year. 2018 was the only year we didn't see any Western Conference team represented in the final.
Wow. Well, I mean, between Texas and California, I feel like there's really a ton of talent there within those soccer hubs, and especially Dallas. I will say Dallas. Is there a Dallas team this time? Because I believe last season, no. Wow.
We haven't had Dallas in almost 2 years.
I was gonna say.
Luxoria.
Okay.
Luxoria
I had a former teammate who played for. They were in our conference when I played in 2021. Lone Star? Is it Lone Star?
It was Lone Star.
Yeah. So she played at Lone Star over the summer, and then she now plays for Liga Mexico Femenil. So she was able to really build a ton of connections from there doing that as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm like, I think between California, Texas, even Florida, New York, I feel like those for me have always been like the big soccer hubs. But I would like to see more coming from Dallas, or I'd like to see what Luxoria does.
Yeah, again, we haven't seen the schedule for the Southwest. I know there's some changes being made here and there, but we'll see if we can get a schedule out in time, and they can get kicking off here in the next week or two. But 5 of 6 has been a Western Conference, but out of the 5 of 6, they've only won 2 times. 2 times, or actually 3 times. Sorry, I'll call it 2 because 1 year was a West on West. So the only team that has won out of the West has been Santa Clarita Blue Heat, but Calgary has been a part of it twice, 2019 and then this past year. So we'll see what happens. We're going to be joined by Grace Storty and Sarah Dilling here at the top of the hour to finish the show, which is exciting. They're both joining us from Calgary Foothills, so we'll have some opportunity to talk with the Canadian contingency of the UWS, you could say, to find out more about that club. So stay tuned with us on that. But Katie, I think the big thing, big picture, big ticket item is going to be who is going to participate this year as it relates to a final. Copper Mine United being the first team to be promoted, they were head-to-head with Lancaster Inferno pretty much all year. They tied the same record. It just came down to head-to-head. And in the final, Copper Mine was not able to get over the hump in the East over FC Buffalo, who represented in the final. But as it relates to kind of what you're familiar with, what do you think of FC Buffalo having an opportunity to get back to the Final Four this year?
I think there's a good chance. They've always had a pretty consistently quality team. I feel like it's always come down to just a few little things. And if you can recall, the conferences changed a bit too from when I was playing. There was a lot of teams in one conference, and then we kind of whittled them down. And I think that makes a huge difference just within the amount of games each player is having to play, each team is having to play in their respective conferences. And
players play them too. It's not just teams. Players got to go through the grind.
You know what I mean? Words. It's early, okay? Words. And I've only had one sip of my Celsius. So, but yeah, no, I think they have a really good chance of getting through and getting out. Buffalo, the Mustangs were in it. I would say they'd have a good chance. And then, of course, SC Blue Heat. Calgary, I remember a bit of the struggle with them was the travel, right? Trying to get down and
during COVID, yeah,
make it to all the games that they needed to. So I'm hoping that that's not going to be a thing for them anymore.
Yeah, no, the travel during COVID was just, I mean, we had Impact at the time too, and Impact couldn't make the travel happen. And so we'll see. Again, it's a different time, right? We always see something that comes about, and last year was the first year post-COVID that we saw no hiccups. And so with some of the travel and the distances that people go, Arizona to Canada is a pretty deep trek, but everybody else seems to be pretty much within a 90-minute drive or less. So we'll see.
It's crazy to me that they're playing Arizona, but I guess that's all they have are like the New York teams, and in Arizona, we're still trying to build out there up north.
Yeah, West, it's always going to be a constant opportunity to build, right? Mm-hmm. Trying to find ways to grow the clubs, grow the brand of UWS, and it's only going to get more and more as we go. And it's shows like this, it's talent like you who come in and help build and grow kind of what we have. So we'll see what we have this year, because it's only going to get larger and hopefully more fun.
Yes. Well, I'm here to support any way I can, forever and always. UWS fan.
What's on tap today for you? You were saying you had a lot to go. You got a San Antonio game this evening.
Well, actually, I was supposed to have a baseball game for University of Incarnate Word in San Antonio. So that's why I was saying I don't know that I'm going to make it today. And then I normally have a Saturday morning radio show called the Saturday Morning Hangover, which is very fitting for me, I will have to say. But so usually I'm doing one or the other. But it was the weird instance and where they said, okay, actually, we're not going to have the game on Saturday. We're moving it to a doubleheader on Friday. So I'm like, oh, sweet. My Saturdays just opened wide up, and I'm here in Houston. My show is usually from, 9 to noon now. And so I was like, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to get to radio and prepped in time. So I guess I just have Saturday open now. So when you asked me last night, hey, if you want to jump on, here you go. I go, actually, I can for once. Hop on, just wing it, right? I love it. Yeah, Kaylor couldn't do the same thing though. Kaylor in this thing called marriage and moving, man, it's gonna get to him. He's a Birmingham Legion guy.
He is a Birmingham Legion guy, which is kind of nice. It's good for him though too. Gets to make a little bit more as I hear footsteps upstairs. Oh no, the monsters are awake.
Oh, the children are coming.
But
Yeah.
Grace Doherty and Sarah Dilling joining us soon from Calgary. And that will be good conversation to have. I'm curious. I want to know what Calgary's got up their sleeve this year. Is there some unfinished business? I know last year we had the unfinished business hashtag thrown around a lot as it related to some of the clubs. So we'll get them on here shortly. Sarah and Grace get ready to join us, and I know they're ready and itching to get going for Calgary Foothill Soccer up north in Alberta. I don't even know if it's warm right now. It's got to be cold in Alberta.
It's got to be, right? Well, when I was in middle school, I got to go to Alaska because some of my family's up there.
Whole different ball game.
Yeah, but it wasn't that cold. It was just you needed a light jacket as the sun began to go down. So I don't know, and that's Alaska. So maybe not. It might be a little warm. We'll have to ask because now I'm really curious.
Now you're curious.
Yeah.
See, and so I know it's cold because of Calgary, the University of Calgary, the Dinos. I've seen a lot of things out that way and done a lot of work with them. So it's nice. It's nice.
We think it all the seasons, unlike in Texas, it's just hot or it's cold.
Well, what was it back during COVID when all the pipes in, was it San Antonio and Austin? It was like a freeze you guys had.
Yeah, it was a freeze Armageddon type situation. And we're not prepared for that in San Antonio and Austin. And, I think even Houston and Dallas got a bit of it. But really, San Antonio and Austin, everyone's pipes were bursting. Nobody had proper jackets. People were freezing literally out in the cold, and in their houses aren't properly insulated for that type of weather. I was living for it. I personally set a fire on my back patio with some 2x4s and a fire pit. I invited people over, and I was like, I've got couple 6-packs. Y'all just come out here and hang out because what else are we gonna do?
Not much.
I also had the proper attire to stay warm, and not everybody had that. So yeah, that was not nice. That was not nice.
Yeah, we got Sarah backstage. We'll wait for Grace to jump on as she's probably getting herself going. I know they got training today. They've got some work to be done, probably seeing physios. We'll talk a little bit about the importance of physios with Sarah and Grace, because Grace is still playing in that college world, and I'm curious to know about what it's like, life as a college athlete in this NIL times and transfer portals that we talked about a little bit. And then with Sarah being the goalkeeper of the club and what she's looking forward to this season, and see how she's trying to stay up to speed and keep her game at the top level in the UWS and beyond, and especially with the new Canadian league that Calgary will be a part of. We'll talk a little bit about that and get them going. So once we have Grace joining us backstage, we'll get them going. But in the meantime, Katie, summer of soccer, how many goals do you think we see this year? We talked a little bit beforehand. We said that the number of goals last year was 924. I'm curious to get Sarah's take on this 924 goals scored last year as a goalkeeper, if it's an overinflated number. Maybe like we talk about baseball with the ball and baseball being juiced, is the soccer ball becoming more juiced for goalkeepers? So what are your thoughts? Do we see, how many goals do you think we see this year?
Well, optimistically, I would like to see 950. We should take bets on this. 950.
950.
My
Okay.
magic number.
With 130 games, you're saying 950. All right.
950.
All right.
Because, 925. There were so many times where there were so many close calls too.
Right.
Right. And so it's like, the team, well, the Mustangs had a lot, didn't they? They had a pretty good chunk.
They had last year 60 goals for.
Oh, well, yeah. Because you might take a hit on that one. But for the sake of optimism, I'm going to go with 950.
There we go. Well, hey, and because I know she's got other things to do, let's get Sarah on the show here. Good morning, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Long time no see.
It's been a minute.
Hey, so wanted to first off, say thank you for joining us this morning. It's a privilege to have you on. But also, I'm curious to know a little bit about the season for you and the off season. You guys finished in July. What have you been doing between now and July to stay sharp? Because I know there's a lot of things happening in Calgary as it relates to professional soccer and some of the opportunities at Foothills. What have you been doing lately to make sure that you're ready for not just the summer of soccer 2023, but beyond?
Yeah, lots of super exciting stuff happening in the soccer world in Canada and Calgary specifically as well. For me, after season, it was taking a bit of a time off to rehab some injuries, some nagging injuries that a lot of the girls pick up throughout the season and even before the season. So taking a little bit of time there and then just staying at it, motivated. I mean, losing in the final 2-1, it leaves a little bit of a bitter taste in your mouth. So that motivation was there throughout the year and it's still there. Doing the little things, making sure that still getting your lifts in. Obviously with Calgary, you talked a little bit about, I heard you guys talking about the weather here a little bit. It's hard to be on full pitch all the time. So that's something that here we have to manage and it's not as readily available to us as it is in other places in the world. So finding areas and spaces where we still can kind of recreate the proper training environments and being consistent with that. Just doing the right things.
Yeah, that sounds definitely like a challenge, not having a place to practice all the time. And I'm sure indoor facilities are fully at max capacity during those moments too, whenever they're needing to be used. And do you think that maybe that somehow the silver lining is that it gives you guys a little bit more rest so that you're not just totally hammering away at your bodies time and time again? Because Canada in general, every Canadian I've ever met has been a fantastic soccer player. They're just good. And so do you think that maybe in a weird way that kind of helps?
There could be an element to it. So in the wintertime, we play in an 8v8 league. So it's a smaller, we actually are super fortunate because Foothills does have a full field house. Of course, like you mentioned, in the winter months, it's packed, super busy. Everyone's using it, even from other clubs and stuff for games and everything. So we do have a little bit of an 8v8 league, which somewhat replicates what you do in outdoor, but it's in an 11v11, but it's not quite the same. I would say in terms of rest, for some of us, there could definitely be that added benefit where there is that little bit of a break. I know that the university girls are training almost all the time, but for those of us that we're a little older and have to manage things a little differently, it can be a blessing in disguise sometimes.
I feel that so much.
Kind of want to go back to your programs, your off season, Sarah. You had about a 3-year period where it was just knee or little nagging issues. This year, comeback player of the year in my books, but also goalkeeper of the year in UWS. What does that mean as it related to you and that whole process of coming back from rehabbing? I think it was a partially torn ACL, your meniscus. There was a lot of things. A lot of people would have hung their hat up, but you said no and you kept going. What was that grind like for 3 years?
Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah, there was a full tear in there, a partial tear, a torn meniscus, a retorn meniscus. There's a lot of stuff that I'm still managing as well. And I mean, not that any of us play for the individual awards or anything like that. It's always for the team and the whole. But I would say that was probably the most proud moment of my career, knowing like what I had overcome to get to that point. It was big. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially as you get older, it's a lot harder to come back from stuff. People don't realize how hard that is. So I would feel exactly the same.
Yeah, it was a lot. And it's tough too, like, because people don't realize, well, some of us realize, once you're done university, like if you're not going overseas to play, you've got to start working. So
right.
with working full time, in addition to all the training and managing the injuries and all that, it is a lot for sure.
That and footing the bill for a lot of the injuries too is that's a whole other ball game. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the pathway. So now with Canada having announced this professional women's league, there's a bigger pathway, more opportunity for people to continue playing. For you personally, how important is it to see the future of Canadian soccer have a lot more light and be brighter than it has been the past few years? We've seen a lot of the negatives coming out as it related to the Football Federation in Canada. But now with this pathway for professional soccer, what does that mean? How does that help build the structure, the status of clubs like Foothills, or give universities like Calgary an opportunity to showcase their talent?
Yeah, it's everything. It's something that I think it's been needed for a long time, and it's been deserved for a long time with the quality of players that we do have up here. I could say like it's something I've dreamed about my whole life. So it's incredible to have that pathway for girls to now be able to see an end game, not an end game necessarily, but to have that goal to be able to play professionally in their own country, potentially in their home city. Like it adds a whole nother level of competitiveness and drive and motivation for players coming through. And yeah, it's just massive. It's a huge announcement. It's a huge step forward for women and for Canada, especially. Yeah, it's huge.
And to second on that question, does it change the structure of college soccer in Canada? We see a lot of players like your teammates, Grace in particular, who goes to the University of Memphis. Does she maybe now stay home and go to become a Dino if there's more opportunities? Do we see more players, more talent staying at Canadian colleges to continue their play, or do we see continued movement to the United States?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it could go either way. I think it could change that pathway slightly for players to know that they could be in front of the professional coaches more often, being maybe staying home or playing in Canada. I still do think there is that element that comes with going to the NCAA that is just highly competitive, and you learn and you grow so much when you move away. Not to say you couldn't move away in Canada as well, but yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. It could go either way for sure.
And what do you think about the role that the UWS plays in that, as being just another step towards getting towards that level of play?
Yeah, the UWS has been huge, especially for the development of our program as Foothills as a club in Calgary. Plays a huge role in that. And the only reason that we have been at the forefront, Foothills has been at the forefront of trying to build this league and get it to come to Canada and get it started, is because of our opportunity to play in the UWS. And to see our success in the UWS shows us that we can compete at the highest levels and even higher levels. So the UWS has played a huge role in that, I would say. Yeah.
Sorry, Katie. I thought you were going to go.
No, go ahead. Go for it.
One of the other questions, and I know, Sarah, we've talked about this a little bit, having that transition period from finishing spring season in college to an opportunity to play during the summer, to run into fall, and then the opportunity. So this past year, we saw 6 of the first 10 picks were UWS alum in the NWSL draft. How important is it to have that summer of soccer, that element of continuous play to keep the fitness levels or even just to keep you moving over that period of time? How important is it to stay in the league?
Yeah, extremely important. Just like you said, just continuing that level of play is huge. And I know that from my experience coming back from, I was down in Texas and coming back in the summer, like you play to a point, but it's not held at the same standard as you would be held to at school. So to have that standard continued, you almost just like don't allow yourself to take a break, not in a way that you like physically need a break, but just mentally it keeps you that much more dialed in. And that much more competitive in a way, just because you want to keep winning, right? And so it just kind of keeps that competitive drive going through the summer. And I think it does carry over into the fall for sure.
What's next for Calgary?
Almost. It's like a source of accountability. At least that's what it was for me. I know I was not going to put that kind of effort into, fitness or the intensity level on the pitch as I would anywhere else. And it's also not really accepted in the rec league to go out and tackle people exactly, or, people. So it was kind of nice to be able to have that outlet again to just
totally
get everything you can, it's different.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you.
Everybody's got to go to work on Monday. That's the problem. Everybody's got to go to work.
Yeah.
As long as you're not demanded to do physical labor, I think,
Yeah.
then you're okay. You'll just limp in to work.
Yeah. You'll
Hopefully
manage.
sit in a chair.
So Sarah, if you could provide us some light, I'm curious to know of the pyramid now with Foothills and the structure, right? So this the professional Canadian league is starting here. I think it's 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in 2 years, that league will begin. What role does Calgary play in the development of this? And do you have ambitions? Is there a role that you are participating in to get it from, UWS, but also an opportunity to play at that level in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal, to be on that team. So I get emotional thinking about it because it's a dream come true, and to be able to play professionally in your home city and your home country is, there's no question that that's my goal. In terms of like the tiering structure for Foothills, they've done a really good job of building their development academies and programs through different tiers of football in Canada. So obviously the UWS is at the top with our club for women's soccer, and then we now have a League One, which they call it, in Alberta, it's a highly competitive league as well. They've just started an exhibition series. Actually, yesterday it kicked off, and so let me think. Yeah, so we're able to use that as our kind of like development squad to pull from, where girls are still playing at a very high standard. And then below that, we also have our major league team, which is, again, has been historically the highest level you can play in Alberta. So we've got, and then below that, we've got our youth academies and our youth team. So we have a huge, what's it called? I can't think of the word right now. Pathway for girls.
Pathway.
And for us as the top flight UWS team, it's amazing to have the quality of team or players that we can pull from when injuries do come up and stuff like that. And the motivation that gives all the girls that are coming through the club to see, like, this is the step. I go here, I go here, I go here. And then this is my final goal. It's huge. And
10-0 was the score of that exhibition yesterday. Listen, Sarah has been with the program for a while. Sarah Taylor has been with Foothills for quite a while. What does it mean for her as a coach? I know she went through some of the licensing programs and was one of the first women, I think, if I recall, the A license in Canada. How important is it to have female representative coach at that level as well in Sarah Taylor?
It was incredibly important. I can remember when I went down, so this was in, I'm going to date myself here, but 2014 or 15, I think. I played down in Arizona with FC Tucson in WPSL. And for the first time ever, I had a female goalkeeper coach and a female head coach. And it was crazy. All of a sudden, just, I don't know, there's a different vibe. There's a different feeling to feel that when you have a female coach that you can look up to and that you can trust and you can know that they are at that level. It's huge. Like, I don't really know how to explain it other than, it has a huge impact for girls. And I guess it gives an example too for, maybe you don't, Sarah Taylor still competes and still plays, but maybe if that's not your path, there are still pathways into the female game at the top level through coaching and refereeing and all that stuff.
It's so important too to show that, like, there are so many different avenues you can take after being an athlete, right? You can go to or media or whatever, and the more women there are in those spaces, the more people will feel comfortable also moving into those spaces, and the more realistic it will seem. I think because I'm also an older player, and I remember back in the day, I'd only had one female coach my whole life, and that was in high school. Everyone else was a male coach, and I felt the same thing. I felt that difference that you're talking about, and I think I can only imagine how different it would be to play under a female coach at a really high level, because they just get things that dudes aren't going to be able to get, right?
One thing I think that's really incredible and awesome that Foothills has done is they've recognized that. And so with this announcement of League One coming in and then with the Pro League starting, they are making a very concerted effort to bring more women onto the women's side. as coaches and leaders, which is really cool.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
I really do.
May 28th, home game, LASC. What should people be ready for come the summer of soccer in Calgary?
They should be ready for a lot of what they saw last year. We are motivated. We're ready to go. We're excited. I can't tell you how losing in the final last year, that taste, that bitter taste, it doesn't leave you, and it's not gonna leave until we climb that final mountain and win the UWS championship. So that's what we're going for, like straight up. That's it. And yeah, people should be excited to come watch us. We've got a really good squad put together for this year. Tux has done a good job.
Two finals appearances for Calgary, but yet to get one. Is this the year of Calgary?
Yeah, this is it.
My last question. So I don't know. You've probably marked it. June 22nd. Do you know who you're playing on June 22nd?
Is that Santa Clarita?
Is that a game that you mark on the calendar as an opportunity? And this is, you don't have to give bulletin board material. We don't want to put that out there. But is that one of those games that you look forward to because of the amount of talent they have on those clubs and that they bring in, and it's an opportunity for potentially you to showcase your opportunities and your capabilities against some of the best?
Completely. Like Santa Clarita has set the standard for years, right? They're a measuring stick, and to be able to compete with them and beat them whenever we can, is a huge measuring stick for us, like we said. So yeah, super excited for that game. Those games, I guess we play them twice, and they're always very competitive, and they're always so much fun to play in, because playing against players of that caliber is just a pleasure, and it makes everything more enjoyable about the game.
I'm excited about Thursday, June 1st, because I actually get to come up and hang out with you guys for a little bit here in Tahoe. So I'm excited. I'm going to probably leave work early that day so I can make it up to Tahoe in time. But that will be a fun game. You'll love Tahoe. I know you guys are probably flying in on Wednesday. So there's a lot of little things to do, and you'll be like, oh, it's like home. So it's exciting. It's exciting.
I've never been, so I'm excited.
Well, we're excited to have you out here, and hey, we're excited to see you again this year. I know you're ready, and Foothills is ready as always. Tux has you guys ready to play every opportunity, and perhaps I'm not going to spoil it, but we'll see you. It's going to be close to home for me again, so I'll be able to make it down for the final this summer. But so, how can people find out more about what you have going on, more about what Calgary has going on, and why do people need to be paying attention?
Yeah. Well, a lot of the Foothills stuff can be found on Instagram. I think it's Foothills WFC. And then for me, it's Sarah Dilling 26. People should be paying attention because we have big ambitions at this club, and we're not going to stop until we get there. And then every year it's just another one. So people should be really excited about what we're doing here at Foothills and in Calgary for Alberta and for Canada and for women's soccer in general. So there's a lot of things to look forward to and be excited about.
And Sarah, I just have to say, like, your emotion and your passion about having a professional team there in your hometown is everything. I think a lot of people might, the general viewer of soccer, right, might just kind of glaze over it thinking, oh yeah, okay, we're getting a new team, but it means everything for you guys. And I think that's my favorite part about it, is knowing that Canada Soccer is going to build even more. It's going to build both for them and the UWS and create that pathway both up and back, right? So I'm so pumped for you. I'm pumped for everybody there in Calgary, and you've got a fan, so I will be following close by. That's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Well, hey, Sarah, I know you got physio and training and other things to get to today, so we appreciate you giving us the time, and good luck this season. It should be good.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
All right, cheers.
See ya.
All right. Well, hey, Katie, I think that wraps up the show. That was a great opportunity to talk to Sarah. I'm really excited to see how she's capable and able to get to the next level and potentially get Calgary over the hurdle of a championship this coming year as it leads into 2025 for professional soccer in Calgary, because I think that could just be huge for women's soccer in Canada.
Right, and she's a high caliber player, as you said. keeper of the year for the UWS. It's a very realistic possibility for her to take a step into that next level. She's been putting in the work, doing her due diligence, and there's a lot of players as well in the UWS who are capable of so many big things, and even just playing in the UWS is a big deal, obviously. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens, and I'll do my best to try to keep a pulse on things so I can hopefully pop in here and there.
And no worries. We were excited to have you this morning because Megan decided to go run a marathon today. My goodness. Run for fun.
She is. I'm like, isn't she supposed to be here? But hey,
some marathon.
Yeah,
some marathon.
Just a casual marathon, of course.
Oh, I think I'm allergic to cardio right now. I'm so tired of it.
My back hurts thinking about it. Like, just thinking about it. My knees, my hips, and my back are like, never again. Yoga only for the rest of my life.
I may pull a hamstring if I try to go run a marathon right now. But, well, hey, Katie, good luck the rest of the way. If we don't see you next week, and I'm sure we'll see you down the road because you have so many things going on. Your plate is full, and I'm glad you gave us just a little bit of that kid plate, and you were able to separate the vegetables from the dessert. So thank you for coming and hanging out with us this morning.
Oh, I'm so happy to do it. Whenever I realize, oh my gosh, I actually do have an opening. I'm so glad you sent that late text because I thought, oh man, I gotta give back and come back to the place where it all started. And so you guys, I'm always a fan. I'm always gonna be your supporter. So thanks for having me. And I really do hope I can still be around it, because I love the summer of soccer. It's helped me even at other levels because I know about these up and coming players that a lot of people don't know about. Right. And so, and it just makes you that much more invested. But yeah, so thanks for having me. And again, I'll try to make it back.
Well, I spent the first 15 minutes just talking. Now I have had conversation. It feels good. So, hey, for everybody who has jumped on at one point or another in the last hour and a half, I appreciate everybody's time for the kickoff show for UWS. Hey, in our matchup today, New England Mutiny versus Worcester Smiles. You can find all of the action on 11, so make sure you check it out. And you can find all things UWS on all social media platforms. Just type in UWS Soccer in the search bar, and you'll be able to find everything that we have going on as it relates to the summer of soccer and beyond here in the UWS. And until next time, everybody, cheers, everyone.